Far Eastern University's Institute of Education is one of the university's pillar institutes. Since 1934, it has produced passionate educators and dedicated leaders who have contributed to nation building. We, in the Institute of Education, take pride in the various recognitions from different organizations that manifest our commitment to produce future-ready leaders. We are recognized by the Commission on Higher Education as a center of excellence in teacher education. We have a Level 4 accreditation status from the Philippine Association of Colleges and Universities, as well as the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance, or AUN-QA. In today's changing landscape, faculty from the Institute of Education continue to strive for excellence by innovating and adapting to new trends and approaches in teacher education. Our techniques and practices are constantly evaluated to ensure that students are imbued with professional skills that enable them to adapt to their environment. In FEU-IE, students are at the forefront of the program. Student-centered learning is embedded in the way the faculty design and implement their lessons and class activities. We celebrate diversity and recognize the differences in student context. We ensure that every student is an essential part of the conversation.
The FEU Institute of Education has developed this unique teaching and learning culture in which students are seen as co-creators of knowledge and teachers as facilitators of learning. This kind of setup develops an excellent, one-of-a-kind learning experience for the students. Our faculty are experts in the field of education and research. They are all updated in the latest trends in teacher education.
The Institute of Education recognizes that we are part of a larger community. We ensure that students are not just limited to the classroom, but are engaged in their community.
IE makes sure students have the best college life experience possible with its student-based organizations such as the Institute of Education Student Council and the Young Educators Society. Students are able to experience programs and activities that do not only cater to their academic needs, but also hone their leadership skills through extracurricular activities. The student organizations help to reach out to communities in need.
FEU-IE advocates for our teachers' welfare, values the importance of research, and contributes to our partner institutions to ensure that the transformative power of education reaches everyone.
This is the Institute of Education, where students, faculty, and staff work hand in hand to build a future-ready community.
Welcome to Far Eastern University. Here are some reminders from the FEU Office of Education Technology. Join 15 minutes before the start of the event. Make sure to dress appropriately. Remember that this is a formal engagement in an online setting. Check your Wi-Fi connection before joining. Familiarize yourself with features you may need to use, such as mute, unmute, stop-start video, and screen share. Mute your mic when not talking. Use the raise hand button if you want to speak. Find a quiet place without interruptions. Be aware that you are on camera. Avoid doing things that may cause distraction. Use appropriate equipment for the webinar. If you're using your mobile phone, please use a headset to reduce the noise that they pick in your location. Please avoid using a speaker. When asking a question, always state your name and your institute department first before throwing in your questions. Also, please make your voices clearly heard. If you are tuned into our social media accounts, please state your nickname, department, and your question. Do not spam the chat box. Always be courteous and do not engage in a chat with others while the webinar is ongoing. The organizers reserve their right to disengage anyone who will not follow the guidelines. We are now ready to start our event.
Good afternoon, everyone. Isang magandang hapon sa lahat ng mga estudyante at bisita mula sa iba't ibang institusyon. Thank you so much for the time that you allocate to be here with us this afternoon. This webinar is still in commemoration of the National Teachers Month. We kick off the event yesterday by a webinar intended to upskill our teachers in terms of special education for distance learning. For this afternoon, we hope to continue, and for the rest of the month, we hope to continue being of help and of service to our fellow teachers and to the learning and teaching community by, again, bringing another important and relevant upskilling webinar for everyone. I am Joseph Intalan, Faculty and Department Chair of FEU Institute of Education Undergraduate Studies, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon. Our webinar for this afternoon is entitled Alternative Methods in Education Research Data Gathering. Basically, this special lecture explores alternative methods in education research data gathering. In particular, this webinar discusses alternative sources of data for educational research, especially this time of the pandemic, which is very, I can say to myself, very relevant, especially if you're an education researcher or a graduate student researcher or even an undergraduate teacher education researcher. This webinar and discussion will be very relevant for all of us who has this, who always pursue research and knowledge in terms of teaching and learning. Before I introduce to you our guest or resource speaker for this afternoon, just a reminder to everyone to please participate. We hope that you can engage later after the discussion in our open forum. You are free to type in your question or raise your virtual hand to be acknowledged during our open forum. Also, please don't forget to answer our evaluation form at the end of the program. And lastly, but a more important reminder is always to keep and follow the health protocols. We can beat COVID by getting ourselves vaccinated and still following the health protocols. So let me now introduce to you our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is Dr. Sally B. Gutierrez. She is a professional lecturer at the Department of Graduate Studies and Transnational Education of the Institute of Education of Far Eastern University. She obtained her PhD in Science Education Biology major at Seoul National University in Seoul, South Korea, under the Global Korea Scholarship, formerly known as Korean Government Scholarship Program, or KGSP. She is a full-time graduate scholar. At Seoul National University, Dr. Gutierrez was very active in research and received multiple awards and funding from the Bring Korea Together Science Education for the Future, or BK2SEF or BK2SEF, for her regular publications in international uh, SSCI Index and Scopus Index journals in the field of science education and educational research. She was also a recipient of the Seoul National University Global Women Leaders Fellowship in recognition for her achievements in her field. In her graduation, she was granted the Excellence Award for the students with best academic practices by the National Institute for International Education of the Ministry of Education in Korea for her numerous publications and attendance to local and international conferences in her field during her graduate studies. Before joining FEU, she was a science education associate at the University of the Philippines National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development, or UP NISMED, where she was a multiple recipient of the International Publication Award that is given by the Office of the Vice President for Academic Affairs of the University of the Philippines to UP faculty and staff for their publication to peer-reviewed journals. Her research interests include a wide range of topics such as scientific modeling, scientific argumentation, epistemic emotions, dialogic inquiry, adaptive teaching, epistemological messages, responsive teaching, scaffolding, teacher professional development, and lesson study. Her expertise has always been recognized by international high-impact journals such as Teaching and Teacher Education, International Journal for Science and Mathematics Education, Journal of Mathematics Teacher Education, Professional Development in Education, Review of Education, and the Asia Pacific Science Education as a regular peer reviewer on articles related to her research interests. Currently, Dr. Gutierrez is an active member of various international organizations in the field of science education, such as the European Science Education Research Association, European Association for Learning and Instruction, and the Australia Asian Science Education Research Association. As these organizations regularly hold international conferences, they serve as platform for Dr. Gutierrez to disseminate her early research findings. Recently, she was also invited by the Lifelong Learning Platform of the European Civil Society of Education as a member of the expert panel on lifelong learning and assessment practices in education. Students, colleagues, teachers, and education practitioners, let us all welcome our resource speaker for this afternoon, Dr. Sally Gutierrez. Good afternoon, Dr. Sally.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
You may go ahead, ma'am, if you're ready.
Share my screen.
Unscripted account ko pala to.
Sorry, hindi siya nakastart.
Okay, we can see your screen now, ma'am. You may start once you're ready.
Okay. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Sally, and I'm here to talk about alternative methods in education research data gathering. And if you're planning to ask me later if I have done some of this, I haven't done any of this uh, research data gathering methods, but I can share you some of the tips on how to do it. And these are all based from the interviews I had with my friends and other researchers that are engaged in research in this time of pandemic. So to present this um, topic, I'll be presenting 4 points. So let me just brief you what is data collection, and later I'll be uh, dealing into the importance of data collection, the data collection tools. These are all briefly discussed. They will be briefly discussed later, and we will be focusing on the alternative data collection methods in this time of pandemic. Okay, so what is data collection? Of course, we all know that we need data, and we collect them for us to have a glimpse of what is reality, and we are trying to answer um, or to give solutions to our problems, and we use the data as evidence for how we conclude or how we answer our questions, and it is usually used for making decisions, inferences, and to interpret data trends. So data collection is a methodical process of gathering or analyzing specific information to propose solutions to relevant questions and evaluate results. So data is collected and they are subjected to hypothesis testing, especially for your quantitative data or quantitative research design. And the hypothesis testing is usually important because it eliminates assumptions, or it eliminates the bias that we do or that we might possibly do. Or okay, so we have two types of primary data in both the alternative ways of doing research and the regular ways on doing research. So first, we have the quantitative data collection. So first is we usually have the face-to-face interaction, and now we have the online. We have the mail. We use the mail or the email, and now we can also use the phone interview. And for the qualitative data collection tools, we use, for example, we also have online forum, in-depth interviews, group interviews, we also engage online communities, and we also have web survey chat. So we also have some sample of secondary data, and these are found in books on from online portals. We can also see them, and we also have journals. So journals, we usually have we usually find journals who are posting or who are sharing their sample data, and they are usually found at
Recording in progress.
appendices if they happen to share it, or you may email the authors who are the proponents of the research. So now we go into the alternative research strategies in this time. So first, we have the media content analysis. So this media content analysis is, of course, from the phrase itself. So we are trying to analyze what is in the media, and we are trying to deconstruct the pieces of a media with tendency towards either qualitative or quantitative research methods. So we are trying to analyze clips or text from media, and we are trying to see the trends from those clips or from those um, materials that exist in media. So in analyzing the existing media content, so in qualitative methods, we usually unstructure the clips or the written text, and we conduct debate and maybe form themes later as we organize them into categories. And media content analysis, just for the sake of for us to know, it was first introduced by Harold Laswell in 1927, and he first used it to study propaganda. So for more on the analysis of media content, we use direct communication via the text. So we are trying to find the social interaction that exists in the media content. So it's an unobtrusive means of analyzing interaction. So what we are concerned here are the interactions that exist um, in the media content. So for example, we are trying to analyze how the language is being used in an advertisement, or how the content of the advertisement is aligned to the factual knowledge, for example. And when it's well done, is considered relatively exact research method based on hard facts as opposed to discourse analysis. So discourse analysis is another way of is another method of data analysis. And what are the advantages of media content analysis? So of course, for sociologists and for social researchers, they're trying to see how society reacts to media and how companies use the media to promote consumerism. So the basic um, target of this is to promote consumerism, and it can be used to analyze the ideologies of those who produce them and how they try to spread this ideology. So, for example, we have some tricks of uh, advertisers to entice people. So, those researchers are trying to understand how these advertisement tricks would um, encourage the consumers to, for example, to buy a certain product or to patronize a certain product. Okay, so what are the advantages of media content analysis? So it provides valuable historical or cultural insights over time through analysis of text. So why through time? Because of course, um, one advertisement is not only aired just once, so it takes a long time for this advertisement to stay in the media. So it goes over time, and it allows closeness to text, which can alternate between specific categories and relationships. So we are trying to understand how the text are giving information, and so later on we can devise or we can think on how to categorize this text and form themes on how they are related to each other. It can be used to interpret text, yeah, and for the purpose of such development of expert systems. So for example, since knowledge and rules can be both coded in terms of explicit statements about relationships, so usually we try to see the links of these texts and the images that are being shown in the media. Okay, so what are the disadvantages of media content analysis? Of course, it relies heavily on researcher interpretation. So why? Because you, as a researcher, have your prior knowledge, for example, on an issue that is being shown in the media, and you are trying to bring your self into how you would react if you would see such advertisement or media content. It may also not correspond to the interpretation of other researchers. Yeah, because it is basically it relies on your self interpretation. And it may produce a distorted image of society. Why? Because um, you may contradict what is existing or what is the normal trend by putting your research or your interpretation in your content analysis. And it may mislead the public or adversely affect the socialization of children. Yeah, so for example, if you, the normal trend now is, for example, this issue one, and then later on you try to contradict that issue, and it may cause distortions among the audience that may see your research. Okay, it can also be extremely time consuming, and of course there are so many error that uh, may be present. However, all research can be subjected to errors, and it is often devoid of theoretical base. Yeah, because when you just react on a specific topic or a specific issue, so there's no theoretical base about it unless you have something like, um, especially those advertisements would that would include scientific facts about it. So you can use those scientific facts, but of course it's not well researched, and it's inherently reductive, particularly when dealing with complex text. Yes. And it often disregards the background in which something has been produced. Okay, so for example, of course, these advertisers would tend to just produce something for them to catch the attention of audience. And for you, you don't have any background information on how they were able to produce that. And however, when looking into media content analysis, it helps to think of questions such as what is the subliminal message in the media and how is this influencing how I think? Okay, so just putting yourself as an audience, so you as a researcher and then putting yourself as an audience, you try to think of these questions before doing media content analysis. So what are sample questions for media content analysis? So for example, how do children's TV programs portray violence, racial or gender differences? For example, how prevalent is X on certain types of programs if X equals sex, violence, homosexuality, smoking, drug or alcohol use? Okay, so next are what types of news stories are prevalent in the evening news, on the front page, on magazine covers. So these are sample research for media content analysis. And more of those, yeah, for example, this one, what percentage of TV or newspaper news is, for example, crime, accidents, promotional, or human interest? So we all find these issues in the media in any form. We see them on social media. We see them on the mainstream media. We see them on print media and any forms of media. And then how do commercials differ between different types of programming? And another example is to what extent do different TV shows or magazines reflect the target market of advertisers? Okay, so these are some of the questions for media content analysis. Okay, so we have two schools of thought about the media content analysis. So from the Marxist point of view, media content analysis allows us to see how the media controls us to further enslave us to keep us from questioning what is going on. Okay, so we are trying to um, uh, critic or we're trying to see how media would alter our decision making. Yeah, so and we are presenting those ideas for our audience if you are researchers. And for the functionalist view, media content analysis allows us to see how the media controls us to further um, sorry, it's just the same. Okay, and for these two views, we are trying to find out how media would affect us in our everyday life. Okay, and next form of alternative collecting or data gathering methods for this in our time now is archival data analysis. So from the term itself, archives, we're trying to use information that already exists in someone else's files. So these are often kept in legal requirements for references or as an internal record. So these are, for example, we have the DepEd results of the teams and PISA. We can use that. Okay, and we because it's the result of completed activities, it's not subject to change and therefore sometimes known as fixed data. Okay, and where are the sources? So where can we find this? We usually find them in public records from government agencies. We have the research organizations. So research organizations also present, aside from their research journals or research articles, they also present technical reports, and we can also use that. Health and human service organizations, schools and education departments, academic and similar institutions, and the business and industry sector. Okay, so what are we trying to look into this data in archival data? So we are trying to look for knowledge and awareness of issues where demographics of the population, say for example, who are involved in, for example, in a workshop or in a training or in in a community of practice. So we are trying to look into those demographics of those people who are involved, the behavior of people, the health and development outcomes, and environmental conditions or risk protection factors affecting the population for these health data. So why do we collect and use archival data? So it's easier and less time consuming than collecting all the data itself. So because it's already existing. And archival data may have already been processed by people with more statistical expertise. So for example, you're not really expert into statistics, and the data that you're trying to retrieve are all statistically tested already, so you can use that. And it's quite possible that you find more information that you'd be able to gather if you do it yourself. So why? Because you are trying to um, merge all the data that is already existing in the field. So also archival data could touch on important areas you have not considered or identify patterns or relationships you wouldn't have looked for. So yes, and uh, these are things, for example, since they are already recorded, it those recorded data can give you more insights and can even add research questions on your existing ones. It may also eliminate the need to correct problems such as improper sampling, lack of inter-rater reliability, or observation bias. So this is for the case of looking into how the methods were already employed. So if you're trying to look into the methodology that has been conducted, you can look into the sampling method that has been conducted, and were they able to apply the inter-rater reliability, or are there areas which you may see that there were observation bias if the data gathering method is observation. And archival data allows the possibility of looking at the effects of your work over time. It can also make it possible for small organizations with limited resources to conduct thorough evaluation studies. So, for example, you are just a small entity or small organization, and you're trying to compare what you're doing or what your practices are. You may use other organizations' data to look into that, to look into what may be missing in what you're doing, and they may serve as benchmark information for you to enrich or to improve what you're doing right now. So when should you collect and use archival data? Of course, when it's available and when it's relevant. So when you don't have the time or resources to collect data yourself, and when it can inform your evaluation. So when it's available, of course, you have to make sure that they're available and the relevance of it. So because you don't want to gather data and analyze this, and then the relevance will not be shown later when you after your analysis, of course. And usually, for example, in us for education researchers, we're trying to use this archival data to, for example, to formulate policies, or to maybe refine your curriculum, or maybe to revisit the existing practices which may be merged with the emerging practices which may be adopted to your current classroom setting. So what data are you looking for? So data on past participants, yeah, data, general information on the population, for example, their demographics, their behavior, their health and development outcome, their cultural information. So we are trying to look into the norms, the customs, celebrations, beliefs, and practices related to culture. If you are trying to look into, for example, past events, cultural events that had happened, data on similar group that can be used as control or comparison, and results of previous studies. So this control or comparison data, for example, you are able to retrieve similar data. For example, cross-country data. You're studying Philippines and you're making, for example, Singapore as your control country. So you can compare the data that you will be gathering from the Philippines and that existing data that has been gathered in Singapore. So those are things that you can be um, looking for if you're trying to look into archival data and use them for your research. So who is likely to have collected archival data? Of course, we have research organizations, academia, the universities, and news media. So news media also have, they try to analyze the existing or the past, for example, advertisements that they had. Yes, and foundations and other private funders. So why these foundations? Because these serve as their um, uh, primary information for them to, for example, to fund future research and maybe to formulate their corporate social responsibility activities. Hospitals and other healthcare providers, of course, we all know that data from past health protocols are so important in the current time. So, for example, the data during the recent the most recent pandemic that we experienced is the Spanish flu, the presence of the Spanish flu in how many decades ago, and these researchers are trying to look into how the community was able to respond in terms of quarantine measures during those times, and mental health behaviors or mental health providers. Who is likely, yeah, more onto the people who would like to collect or use archival data, advocates and watchdog organizations, community activists, yeah, community economic development organizations. These economic development organizations also use previous data to formulate or maybe plan for their next economic development moves, and business and corporations. So using the archival data. So how do you use your archival data? So to better understand the context of your evaluation, to identify areas to address, and to establish a baseline against which to measure your results. Also, to identify already existing trends that may affect the results of your evaluation. So these are um, used for comparison of your existing data. To establish a standard comparison against which to measure your efforts. Yeah, we also mentioned about serving as control or comparison group, and for the use of a longitudinal study. Next form of or next method of um, um, alternative research strategy is the systematic literature of review for education and social science. So we all know this systematic literature review, and we usually use them in our research as well. But there is a form which only use the literature review. So what is this? What is a systematic review of literature? So it is systematic, explicit, and reproducible method for identifying, evaluating, and synthesizing the existing body of completed and recorded work produced by researchers, scholars, and practitioners. So it originated in medicine and are linked to evidence-based practice. It's a method to review relevant literature through highly rigorous and systematic process. So yeah, it covers content, methods used to find the literature, the criteria for inclusion, and other areas which may be relevant to your research. So this is a process of reviewing what is existing already in the field. So in our case, it's really hard to review, to conduct this review, because we don't if your material or if your target literature is maybe journal articles on certain topic. So I think it's one of the weaknesses of the Philippines, because we don't have enough access of our um, journal platforms. So in other universities abroad, since they have the full subscription for these journal platforms, they're able to extract all the existing literature in a certain topic. Okay, unless you have to define it, like for example, only those studies conducted in the Philippines. Of course, you can do that. We all have the data for that and the research for that. Okay, so what are the key principles of behind systematic literature review? We have equality, and then we also have transparency. Transparency is already ensured because these are existing literature already. Integration, integration in a sense that you're trying to analyze one article over the other. The coverage, so you define the cover of your the range of time that you're trying to analyze. For example, only in the decade from 2000 to 2020. So you can define that, and you can extract the literature for that. Accessibility, yeah. So in other organizations, these are very accessible. The focus is um, ensured when you're only looking into one topic, and the clarity um, of your data analysis. Okay, so these are some of the published systematic reviews and meta-analysis of higher education research by team in education. So for example, in teaching and learning, so we have the academic performance, which was conducted by Richardson and colleagues in 2012. Approaches to learning, this has been a trend recently. Uh, Interdisciplinary teaching and learning, learning analytics, this also a very new topic. Phenomenography, scholarship of teaching and learning. So these are new trends in systematic reviews. Research methods, pedagogy. So self-regulated learning. Uh, Self-regulated learning started to be a trend in research uh, because of the research in motivation and intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation, and teaching portfolios, uh, teamwork pedagogy. Yeah, teamwork pedagogy because of the concept of collaboration. Um, Next, related to course design, we have the adventure learning. Uh, these forms of assessment, yeah, authentic assessment, because of the ongoing research of the NGSS, and the blended instructional practice has been existing in the early 2016, um, because of the online learning or the existence of the MOOC system of learning, and the business internships. Critical thinking has been around for so many years, and digital exclusion, because of the existence of the use of media now in teaching. English as a employability, medium of English medium instruction, entrepreneurship education. uh, it, Recently, education is trying to work with entrepreneurs in order to advance the technology transfer. So that's why we have entrepreneurship education. Feedback, formative assessment. Assessment has been there for because of the international standards. Information literacy, learning management systems that also is a very hot topic in this time. Mobile learning also. Mobile technology supported collaborative learning. So this is, for example, the use of AI in education, or the use of VR technology in learning. Yes, and network learning, online course, student collaboration, oral presentation competence, and professional identity development because of um, the concept of Lave and Wenger professional agency. So it has been existing in the recent years. Reflection, because of the importance of reflection in the involvement of teachers in teacher professional development and students as partners. Say, for example, you are researching in your classroom and you see your students as partner researchers. Okay. Student experience. So under adult undergraduates, for example, yes, autistic students for research in the special education stream, disability assessment, disabled student transition, dyslexic students. So because of the emergence of the disability theory in qualitative research. Yeah, international classroom experience. This has been researched because of the globalization of education, wherein one stud or schools undergo or students undergo student exchange during their 4-year studies in the undergraduate level, and even some other universities would allow for graduate exchange in the graduate level, and mature women, occupational therapy interventions for mentally ill students, peer mentoring. So peer mentoring is also gaining popularity because we are trying to um, go away from traditional um, teacher professional development, wherein only the teacher, the trainers or the training providers are the ones who are knowledgeable. So we are considering how our trainers would act as peers in our training, and student service members or veterans, students from refugee backgrounds, students with mental health difficulties, transgender students because of the emergence of the queer theory in qualitative research, and transition to labor market. Underemployment, of course, like for example, in the current time, how students would acquire jobs after graduation in this time of pandemic. Yeah, and quality, yeah, the Lean and Sigma approaches, quality assurance, quality of student experience, so interviewing them, and quality management. System policy, so yeah, this is for globalization, mass higher education, transnational higher education, and widening participation. And institutional management, for example, the academic drift, administrator and student outcomes, agent-based modeling and simulation, collegiality and managerialism, emergency management, and funding in developed countries. So mainly these are for institutions and how they manage their resources. Okay, and the next one is meta-analysis of published studies. So what's the difference between systematic review and the meta-analysis? So we will find out what are those. So it's a subset. This is a subset of systematic review, and it's usually combining pertinent qualitative and quantitative data from several selected studies to develop a single conclusion that has greater statistical power. So you are all the actually it's usually interchanged with systematic review, but the conclusion is statistically stronger than the analysis of any single study due to, of course, we have increased number of subjects because you're using existing data, greater diversity among subjects, and accumulated effects and results. Okay. So what is meta-analysis? Meta-analysis is the statistical procedure for combining data from multiple studies. So you try to combine this data and then form your conclusion or generalization. And then why? This is to produce a synthesized analysis of results, combining all previous data to establish claims. So when to use meta-analysis? So we use them to establish statistical significance. So basically, since we are dealing with big data, we are applying statistical procedures and to develop a more correct estimate of effect magnitude. So there's a mention of this effect magnitude or effect size, and maybe this is one of the central issue of meta-analysis to provide a more complex analysis of harms, safety data, and benefits. And of course, to examine subgroups with individual numbers that are not statistically significant. Okay. So yeah, I mentioned about the effect size a while ago. So effect size in meta-analysis is a statistical concept that measures the strength of the relationship between two variables on a numeric scale. So example, height of men and women. So for example, on average, men are taller than women. The difference between the height of men and the height of women is known as the effect size. Yeah, so the greater the effect size, the greater the height difference between men and women will be. So statistic effect size helps us to determine if the difference is real or if it is due to a change of factors. So in hypothesis testing, effect size, power, sample size, and critical significance level are related to each other. In meta-analysis, effect size is concerned with different studies and combine studies into single analysis. So for example, the effect size is usually measured in ways such as we all know the standard mean difference, the odd ratio, and the correlation coefficient. So we have also some meta-analytic approaches. So first is the study of study effect meta-analysis. It's an alteration of the Glacian method in two ways. So first is we include rules that are more selective and the study is act as the unit. Okay, and the test of homogeneity. Uh, these are tests developed to determine the likelihood that variance among effect sizes is due to sampling error. So we are more concerned into sampling error. Psychometric analysis, this is usually conducted by psychologists or yeah, psychometricians. Vote counting is a statistical procedure for combining data from multiple studies. Okay. And advantages of using meta-analysis. So what are they? So it gives you greater statistical power because you have applied different statistical methods in your analysis. And it is used as a confirmatory data analysis. So you're trying to confirm whether one or a few groups of studies have already have a common or yeah maybe differences in them in that exist in them. Okay, and then the greater ability to extrapolate to general population affected, considered as an evidence-based resource because this has already been existing in literature. However, there are also advantages of using meta-analysis. So it's difficult and time-consuming to identify appropriate studies. So you have to narrow down which studies will be included. And not all studies provide adequate data for inclusion and analysis. So if you're not able to get the primary or the first-hand data of your source, of course, it's already a disadvantage of your study. And it requires advanced statistical techniques. So if we are not adept with statistical measures, so I think we cannot do this meta-analysis. Heterogeneity of study populations, because we are trying to use different sample that were used by previous researchers already. Okay, so that's all for my presentation. So I'm now open for question and answer. And I hope I can answer your questions because none of this have I performed in my research or in my existing research. Yeah. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Ma'am Sandy, for that very relevant sharing. Even though we have not done this methods of data gathering, you have really opened a wide options for our teachers and education researchers on how they can proceed and conduct their study even during this pandemic. I was reflecting on your presentation a while ago. Parang I realized na when I was an undergraduate student, the dominant data gathering method is survey and interview. But
Interview.
yeah, but hearing all of this, no, there are other sources of data that we can use, and there are other sources of data that we can analyze. I've actually formulated some possibly for me interesting topics using the data gathering method. For example, you mentioned about media content analysis. I was wondering if it's a possible research topic to extract or to analyze how teachers are portrayed in mainstream media,
Yeah.
and how this portrayal sense of how is this portrayal interpreted by, for example, by graduates of basic ed. Does this portrayal uh, uh, influence them on choosing a degree program, or
Yes.
is this portrayal uh, influence how we view what the work of teacher is, no? What the role of teacher is as a second parents, no? Parang may ganun ba siyang effect. So it's really enlightening, no, na we have this kind of method, archival, data gathering, meta-analysis, systematic literature review.
Review.
Some of my colleagues actually call it armchair research, yung system, kasi hindi sila umaalis sa upuan. They're just
Their research.
doing a literature review. Yeah, so thank you so much, Ma'am Sally, for all of this. We're now opening the floor for open forum. If you have any questions, just type in your question in the chat box, or you may raise your virtual hand to be acknowledged. Okay, while you're thinking of your question, let me be the first one to ask Ma'am Sally. Ma'am Sally, just your take on this one. On the interest of some of our guests who are actually in the who is affiliated in the public school now, I think for most of it, public school teachers are asked and are doing action research or action type of research. Does this or do these alternative methods uh, are applicable? Are these applicable to an action type of research?
Uh, well, action research is usually going to the classroom, right? So one thing that action research can be conducted is, for example, you have a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning, and of course, you have some students who would be attending your synchronous classrooms. So it can be the responses that they give in the synchronous learning platform, or uh, I happened to attend two conferences lately. 2 weeks ago, I attended the European Association for Research in Learning and Instruction and the European Science Education Research Association conference, 14th conference. The trend now in action research is the use of topic modeling. So I just picked up that uh, method. And how do they conduct that? For example, you are a teacher, and of course, you try to communicate to your students as much as you can. So you use different platforms. Like, say, for example, in the Philippines, we use the Facebook, we use emails, we use Outlook, we use different social media forms in order for us to communicate with the students. And what they're trying to do is to obtain all those information that the students are trying to ask them, or maybe to consult, or maybe to confirm, and they try to use uh, they do the topic modeling analysis. So in a sense, they try to categorize what are the themes that the students would be asking the teachers. Say for example, is it all related to assessment? Are they all related to your how they will be accomplishing uh their assignments, or maybe the midterm exams, or
Mm.
final, the summative examinations that are given. So those are things. And sometimes there are also topics which may fall into clarification of your content. So you can categorize them, and then you can contextualize them, that these are the existing topics which are given by my students when they ask me something, based on using the different online platforms that are available. Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Ma'am Sally. Your answer again gave us another another insight and another way of how to extract data. So the actual interaction that we do in our classes pala are actually forms of data, no, na yun nga sinasabi ni Ma'am Sally in terms of topic modeling. We have some questions here and in the Facebook live stream. Let's go over first with the first one from uh, Sir June Ploy. How rigorous is it, or how rigorous it is to choose meta-analysis as basis for the thesis studies of students in the graduate school, considering also the span of time needed in researching appropriate studies in relation to the topic one wants to tackle.
So rigorous. So it depends on the method that you will, or it also depends on the topic that you will be trying to analyze, you know. So for example, you choose a topic. For example, in my case, what interests me now is about epistemic emotions. So I have to get all the information, or the data from those who have conducted epistemic emotions already. So the rigor now is, if you want to talk to the author, so you have to email all the authors in this topic, and then you can conduct, you can ask them, for example, what is the um, basic or the doable method that they use in order to gather this epistemic emotion. So epistemic emotion, for example, the very traditional way of obtaining data on this is using student diaries, emotion diaries. So if you're trying to look into that, you can ask the authors if they all use emotion diaries, and then you can go into the next question, like asking them what um what emotions are included in the emotion diary. So because we have different types of emotions, we have the achievement emotions also, and the basic emotions. So achievement emotions, this is usually linked to education, so you can ask those questions, and you can have the research that they have, and of course try to um compare what they said and what they have written in their research. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma'am Sally. I think that very well answered the question of Surgeon Ploy. It's 2:37, but I think we can still accommodate some questions, especially that this is an interesting and relevant topic for all teachers and teacher education students. From Sir Avelino Ignacio of Bulacan State University, for systematic reviews, do we only collect quantitative data from previous empirical evidence? And the second question, for meta-analysis, what are the possible differences of this method in data collection view? We rely on previous evidences when referring to meta-analysis. Sally, would you like to answer first the first question, ma'am?
Okay. So the first question is, are we only focused on the quantitative, ano? So that's the recommended for meta-analysis, but there's a way on how you quantify qualitative data. Say for example, you develop your codes. For example, this term you code it as one, you code it next code you code it as two, or next term you code it as two, and then later you were able to transform your qualitative data into a quantitative one, and then you are now able to say for example, you have different codes, and one literature use many literature use first code, another literature use the second code, and then you can use ANOVA, or you can use maybe correlation in studying the previously qualitative data, which you were able to transform into a quantitative data. So it's a matter of you devising how to code the qualitative data, and then subjecting them to statistical analysis.
There's another question, ma'am, or is it?
Is the what, can I listen to the to the second question?
In data collection view, we rely on previous evidences when referring to meta-analysis.
Yeah, we since we are using existing literature already, so what is your role as a researcher? So you formulate your topic and use the existing literature, existing data to um, answer your research problem. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question, ma'am. Ma'am Sally, is it okay if we extend a bit so that we can accommodate
Yes po.
these last two questions? From Ma'am Rhea Joyce. Hello po, Ma'am Sally. Regarding po sa meta-analysis, what statistical tool po ang nagagamit sa meta-analysis, or it depends po sa hypothesis ng study po? So I think partly,
Mhm.
ma'am, na-mention mo siya kanina. No? So
Yes.
she's asking if meron ba raw appropriate statistical
Parang
tool, or it depends on the hypothesis of the study?
yeah, it depends on your hypothesis. If you're looking into relationships, you use the t-test or the correlational test. If you're looking into the variance in your sample, you use the ANOVA. Yeah, and if you're just looking into descriptive ones, you can use the mean, the descriptive descriptive statistics. Yeah, mean, median, mode, or standard deviation. Yeah.
Thank you, Ma'am Sally. I think this is the last question, ma'am. No? It's from our colleague in IE, from Sir Hildenberg de Marucot. Congratulations, ma'am. Regarding archival data, are there minimum number of references that we should collate in order to have reliable data sources? As we all know, not all data was shared in public, or can be accessed by a researcher. So I think the question is, meron po ba tayong recommendation in terms of the number of references for, or documents for archival data, or is it the same thing that we wait for the data to be saturated? What's your take on it, ma'am?
Uh, I think it depends on the how many have been conducted, ano. So kaya uh one of my friends in the graduate school last time, she studied about the use of, say for example, yung ano ba yung topic niya? Um ab- uh physics, students physics identity. So he used this topic to conduct his dissertation, and he extracted the literature from different journal sources, from Wiley, from Springer, from Taylor and Francis. And I think it's just the same to the sampling method. So say, for example, you can get like around 30% of the research that has been conducted. So I think 30% is enough for us to get a representative of the literature that is existing in the field. However, you I have heard that the preliminary or the pioneer research should always be included in a meta-analysis. So I don't know why, because maybe it's the history of the term. Yeah, so you have to include the proponent of the research. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am Sally. So I think there are no more questions. Just to end the session, ma'am, do you have any message for our teachers who are, and teacher education students who are actually challenge this pandemic on doing their research. No, I think we can all relate to that. No, na this pandemic has challenged every aspect of the way we live personally and professionally. So do you have any message, ma'am, for our teachers and our teacher education students who are challenged in terms of the conduct of their research during this pandemic?
Yeah, everyone is challenged. I am also challenged. Actually, I'm doing a research in Korea, and it's a classroom setting research, and I usually log into the classes, and it's really challenging. But the one message I can say is for us not to give up, and if you have colleagues who would be helpful, you can reach out to them, and actually, the key is for you to start. If you already started, it's already 50% finished. So, yeah, so don't give up, and just continue doing the research. And there are ways on how to utilize your data. So, for example, I have a pre-existing data before this pandemic, and I just want to add more into it. And now I'm using the data from the previous from pre-pandemic, and comparing it with the online learning. So it's another topic now. So yeah, so you can use the existing data and formulate another research question. So especially now, research on COVID, or research on education and any other fields on pandemic are very in demand, and of course they are not existing in the literature, so everything is new. So just go on and just claim it that you have done this in times of pandemic. Yeah.
Thank you
Mhm.
so much, Ma'am Sally. Again, maraming salamat, ma'am, for the time, effort, and expertise. Of course, you're a very expert on this area, and every one of us, I think, has been enlightened of many pathways that we can take our research. So thank you so much, Ma'am Sally, for this afternoon and for sharing your expertise. Maraming salamat, ma'am.
Thank you po.
Thank you also to our audience participants who have attended and participated in this uh, engagement. Thank you for the time, and thank you for being here with us this afternoon. I know everyone is busy preparing for their lessons, doing their tasks at school, but still we allocate our time for us to progress professionally and uh, personally. Please do not forget to answer our evaluation form accessible in the chat box. Nasa chat box po yung link natin for the evaluation. Huwag po natin kalimutang sagutan. And also, I encourage everyone to follow us on Facebook through FEU Institute of Education Manila and Far Eastern University Facebook page. There's more to come. This is just the first week of the National Teachers Month celebration of FEU Institute of Education. We still have upskilling webinars on the area of digital education, sports and wellness education, and teachers' welfare. That would be to come on the coming weeks until we reach the culmination of at the World's Teachers Day on October 5. So again, we hope to see you on our next upskilling webinar. And again, this is Joseph Fintalan from FEU Institute of Education. I wish everyone a nice day ahead of them. Again, please let us all follow our health protocols and please get vaccinated. We'll see you again next time. Thank you so much and good afternoon.
Thank you.